Okay, I should probably start by saying thank you so much for taking the time out to sit down and chat with me. I suppose we should start right at the beginning. So, how did your love of theatre begin?
Oh my gosh, right at the very beginning. Well, on August 15th, 1997, at 4:37 a.m., a little girl was born. Um, no, I would say, I think for me, and everybody has this story. They're
Mhm.
like, well, that's not true, actually. I have some friends that are truly introverts and also actors. I was not one of those children. I was usually singing very loudly on the swing set outside of my house waiting to get discovered as a kid. I think, though, for theater, well, a combination of factors. I was very lucky. I grew up in Connecticut, which is a state right outside of where New York City is in the US. And I was able to see a lot of really good children's theater as a kid. My grandma would take me to go see these local theater troupes. And I remember loving, there was like a theatrical version of Amelia Bedelia, which is the first time I remember going to see a play, and I loved it. But where I really started putting myself into shows, I went to a sleepaway camp and they had this thing called Wacky Wednesday. It was not an arts camp at all. It was
Hmm.
like a kayaking, learn to swim, that kind of
Yeah.
vibe
Okay.
camp. And but they had this thing called Wacky Wednesdays, and every Wednesday night there would be this variety show that was put on by the campers. And my friend and I started writing a recurring sketch called If Boys Came to Camp, because it was an all girls camp. And her and I played the boys, obviously. I have such palpable masculine energy. And it was so fun. And it was my first time doing theater. And I think I mentioned that because I feel like it's so, that kind of explains how I've ended up in the fringe scene
Hmm.
now of like, my first love of theater was truly like me and another person the night before an event, writing something together, coming up with the costumes, pulling it all together, harassing girls in our cabin to be in our little sketch. And people loved it, and it was so fun. And after that, when I went back to middle school, high school, my public school had like a standard theater program where it was like a fall drama, a spring musical, and I auditioned for all of those. I did all of those, and I really loved it, and I'm addicted to it, and I
Hmm.
can't stop. And God, I would have made a great doctor, but here we are.
So, from that sort of first experience of writing, then how did the sort of the more writing focus get entered sort of in later life?
Yeah. I mean, I have to actually credit my high school. I had a high school teacher. It actually started earlier because I had a high school teacher English teacher, Mr. Regan, I'll
Hmm.
shout him out.
English teachers are the best.
Yeah, every theater kid is like my high school English teacher who saved my life. We love them. Mr. Regan, we were studying Tennessee Williams,
Hmm.
and as a part of sort of our experience of that unit, instead of writing a traditional essay, he asked us to write a memory play after we'd read The Glass Menagerie. So I think the assignment was like write 2 pages of a memory play. And all I remember is that I emailed him being like, is it okay if mine's a little longer? And he was like, sure. And I came in with like a 10-page, one act
Full
like
book.
memory play and was like, here's my memory play. And he pulled me aside after class, and my high school had this program called Independent Study that mostly was used by science students. It was a
Mhm.
thing if you like wanted to be able to do labs and things like that. And he was like, hey, I don't know if you know this, but you can actually do an English independent study. And given how much work you just did voluntarily on this assignment, I think you should maybe consider playwriting.
Hmm.
And, there are playwriting programs in college. It's something you could like study later. I know, and at the time I was also involved as an actor in the high school drama troupe. So he knew that I was already involved in that. So we did this independent study together, and it was awesome because it was like once a week he and I would just meet, and it was very self-directed. He was like, what kind of plays do you want to write? How can we set some goals? We had this student theater presentation. So after the drama and the musical, there was a student
Mhm.
directed presentation, but he actually advocated for me to be able to write my own show to go into that and not use a pre-existing one
Hmm.
act. And so I then got into this space where I loved playwriting, I loved acting. I hadn't really seen any examples of playwrights being in their own work yet.
Hmm.
Um, it's it's funny because like I feel like now the like solo show, and also now that I live in New York City, I see
Hmm.
that a lot more. But when I was growing up, I was not familiar with that as like a possibility. It was kind of like, oh, well, you're either going to write or you can be in
Mm.
somebody else's shows. And so, but for me personally, if I stay too long in either world, I start to get antsy and
Mm.
I have to do something else.
But on top of those two worlds, there's also you've got quite a big sort of stand-up presence. So that's laid on top of those two as well. Where did that come from?
Yeah, being in a very loud family.
Mm.
No, I think stand up I was really interested in actually when I started developing this show, No Refunds,
Okay.
that we're talking about today. Um, I'd always been a writer, I'd always been an actor. And when I moved to New York a couple years ago, I was advised by a friend to check out classes at the Brooklyn Comedy Collective, which is this awesome like stand-up venue. They have three venues throughout Brooklyn. But then they also have these classes. And so I signed up for a stand-up class and it was taught by Maggie Crane. And the amazing class in that like she literally was like, it's trial by fire. Every week
Mm.
you're coming in with new material, you're getting up and you're doing it. That's what we're doing. That's the class.
Yeah.
And yeah, I see your eyes widening. But I think what I like about stand up is that I think it is the most challenging and personally vulnerable medium.
Mm.
Um, it's also tricky though, because the thing about stand up is you have to take whatever story you have and make it funny. And of course, there's many more talented stand ups than me. I'm thinking like Hannah Gadsby and Nanette and
Yeah.
that who have commented on this. The fact that like a lot of stand up relies on taking these like experiences and turning them into a joke, which is an amazing way to process trauma, but
Mhm.
can also leave you feeling a little wow. And so I love stand up as a skill and a tool. I think I definitely write in the comedy world as exists. I personally am a little too chicken shit to do a lot of stand up myself.
Mm.
So I like to admire them from afar. I would rather do whatever this third thing,
Yeah.
an interactive, immersive, whatever is.
Mm. Obviously, you mentioned there no refunds. So where did the idea of no refunds come from originally?
Yeah, so in 2020, I don't know if you recall, I lost three jobs in one day because all
Hmm.
of my jobs were either arts related or service industry related, and they were non-essential. And I really panicked. I had just, I had just graduated college. I had just gone through this entire arts education. I knew I was taking a risk with this industry, but I hadn't really
Mm.
felt I had not yet experienced what it was to fully have nothing to fall back
Mhm.
on. And granted, a lot of people hadn't at that point.
Yeah.
The fact that not only did I lose my arts jobs, but I lost my service industry jobs and like
Mm.
that all happened. And so that said, I've always been a bit of a lot of how I cope in times like that is I need a project. I need something to work on. And so I started writing a very early, much darker, much angrier version of the show. I was like, I want to write a show that makes a regular person feel like what it is to be an artist, feel like what it is to have their own money on the line. And I want to see if they are willing to go toe to toe with me, the actual artist, and take that refund from me.
Mm.
Now, that was a very early version. It has changed so dramatically since. That first draft in 2020 was also written for Zoom because
Hmm.
here we are on
That's a lot
Zoom.
to do, yeah.
That was 2020. But as it became clear that things were going to open up, and the more I also just started to think about, I think something the pandemic brought out of a lot of my friends that don't necessarily define themselves as artists is this reality of like, I personally believe we as humans are all artists.
Yeah.
We must be creating. I think the most angry people are the people that don't have that outlet and feel bitter about the fact that others do. I think it's no surprise that arts funding in the US is being cut as fascism is on the rise. Like these things go hand in hand. And it really more became about, okay, can we take a person just like off the street, they buy this premium ticket, and can we make them a star in one night? And can we prove to the general admissions audience that actually they want to see this person? Not, they maybe came for the kooky character and like
Mm.
the bit of the show, but by the end, my hope is that they genuinely feel like they've seen a star rise. And it's still up to them if they want to take that refund or not. But I do want to make it a harder decision of also considering how much their artistic labor is worth.
Totally. Obviously, before we started filming, you did mention the lead character, Tiffany Gold.
Yes.
So where does her inspiration come from, and where does the name come from?
Okay, so name Tiffany was like the first name that came to me when I was writing her. The first draft, she was Tiffany. Gold came, I think, in like a third draft. I think two things. A, Tiffany Gold is pure artifice. She is the entertainment industry embodied. I actually have this little, we had a fan who made a bobblehead of her, and since this is a visual medium, I can show her as I discuss her. It was really important to me that she was a thing that felt very different than who me, Katy Murphy, feels on a regular basis. In that, the whole, I wear hip pads, boob padding, a lot of Dolly Parton, like, influence for sure. Like, I think of like Dolly Parton or like Hannah Montana or these sort of blonde bimbo archetypal, Vanna White also being a game show host and model presenter. This like really specific American aesthetic of like the blonde with sparkly eyeshadow and big tits and a big ass and the whole, and I really wanted to make something that felt just like pure artifice. I think the first stage direction I wrote is like her skin is unnaturally tan, her teeth are unnaturally white, which we don't have the budget for yet, but someday I'm gonna have purple glowing teeth. But I wanted to create something that was so, I never wanted this host character to be afraid on stage. Also, when you're bringing somebody on stage who's not a performer, it's really important to make sure that they are like immediately bolstered and legitimized. And the power of a character like Dolly or Hannah or Tiffany Gold is, and Tiffany Gold also being like Tiffany, like the jewelry band Gold, like there's like an opulence to it. It's a very feminine name. There's something about a sparkly female persona that I feel like disarms a lot of people, and a lot of people across all walks of life. It's the drag queen thing. It's honestly the drag queen thing. Like, I feel like I'm in drag when I'm in Tiffany, and the beauty of that kind of character is somebody who's more, if we have a 50-year-old white male stockbroker, he's like, whoa, I've never seen something like this before. And that disarms him. But on the complete other end of the spectrum, you have somebody who's more of like a little bit less self-confident, less sure of themselves. When this glowing, glittering presence is like, you're a star, that builds something up in them. And that's really, I think, where she comes from, is this part of me, well, a part of me that I'm not so comfortable with, which is, I think every artist has a certain level of like delusion that it's really important you're keeping in a box in order to live your life and talk to normal people and like, well, normal, I use that term loosely. Talk to people out of character is perhaps a better phrase. And there's something about Tiffany where I'm like, we just let that go. Like Tiffany Gold has never questioned whether or not she should be doing this show. Tiffany Gold has never questioned whether or not she is a star. Tiffany Gold knows she is the most talented performer to ever exist, and everybody else is lucky to be in her presence. And she is being magnanimous enough to shine that upon a new budding talent. And there's something very delightful, even though that like scares me about myself, getting to be in her. I feel so energized every night. I would say we were doing a back-to-back. We did a 2-week run in January, and it was the first time we were doing the show consistently over the course of 10 days. Fringe is going to be a whole other thing. But it was, somebody was like, you must be so tired. And I was like, not when I put on the dress. There's something that happens. I feel possessed. Katie's tired, but Tiffany, never.
Obviously, you mentioned there that you bring up people in your show. So how did you come up with the games they will play? How did that sort of come to be?
So, I mean, I can give like a quick little elevator pitch too of what it is, because as we've been talking. So each night there is one star player who has the opportunity to pay a premium ticket price, and that's available on all our ticketing platforms, which by the way are up as of today. You can check out on Gilded Balloon. It is for Fringe, it's going to be one 30-pound ticket. And that person who buys that ticket, and it's first come, first served, there's no application, it's truly just whoever buys it, is on stage with us all night. And they have the chance to win back a full refund of that ticket if they choose to take it. They literally get cut a check at the end of the show. We've done it a few times. All of which is to say, each of the games is designed to challenge them to do something that performers, entertainers do in order to earn money on a regular basis. That said, somebody in a more standard job might not have the experience of. So we've broken them up into 3 rounds. The first round is kind of what you're entering the stage with. The second round is your ability to create something under a deadline with limited resources. And the third round is taking a risk in front of the audience. And putting it into those categories, which my director, Kelsey Robbins, was really, at first the games were just kind of, I think the first draft I wrote 9 games. Now we are going to have 9 games for Fringe this time. We've only ever done the show as a 3-game format or a 6-game format prior to this year. The reason why I wrote so many games in the beginning is it was truly just like, what are things I've had to do in my career, whether that's like something along the lines of like, are you willing to prioritize career over family? And what things are you willing to prioritize? Like, if you book, obviously, if you like book a local commercial that's only going to pay you a $200 fee, you might not miss a family wedding. But what if you book an HBO show? Would you miss your sister's wedding? And those kinds of decisions that artists regularly make. That's a game that has been since discarded, but I use it as an example mainly because I also don't want to totally give away all of the games that we do, because they're different every night, and that's part of the excitement of coming to see the show. But each of them is designed around something that artists regularly do without really thinking about it in order to make money, and to put that person into the experience of doing that, and also to feel the reward of, hey, you did this thing. I'll share one other that we do keep, and that's my favorite game, which is Tearjerker. It's during the take a risk section. It's the final round, but it's, are you willing to commodify your trauma? Can you tell a story that makes our audience genuinely sad for you?
Wow. Yeah.
And they're primed. We're not just like asking them that question out of the blue and then going, go on. All of the games are designed so that they can appear as great as possible. We don't want anybody to look bad on stage. But also that wouldn't be very entertaining. But that's another example of something that like, I remember like my first playwriting class in college, like hearing the advice of like, write the story you're afraid to write. And there is something to that. There's, that willingness to commodify so much of yourself that comes with being an artist. I mean, No Refunds exists out of a very dark time in my own life, and now I'm selling tickets to it. And that exists. And also, I want to make money off of this. It's also, I think as artists, it's often, we don't want to talk too much about the business of it because there's something, oh, you're supposed to be process oriented. You're supposed to be like, a true artist wouldn't care. Like, you'd be doing this to an empty theater. And I'm like, no, I want to make money. I will only feel validated when I make money. And Tiffany Gold certainly will only feel validated when she makes money. And I think it's also important as artists to go like, wait, no, I am worth that amount. Especially at a place like the Fringe where, they'll get you for everything you're worth. The pies alone on the street.
But obviously you mentioned about bringing people up from the audience. So obviously these people are not, they're not signed into contracts with you. They're not necessarily performers. So does bringing people onto the stage add pressure to you as a performer?
I love this question. A lot of my background as a performer since leaving school is in immersive and interactive theater, and a lot of one-on-one performance. I worked with the company Candle House Collective for a long time that does a lot of one-on-one telephonic performances, actually. And so working with that company for as long as I did really gave me kind of a crash course on how do you exist in character interacting with a person who's a real person. And truthfully, part of why I wrote the show the way I did is because that is my favorite mode of performance. I love seeing how a new person and a new energy changes the entire like quality of this experience each night. Like, does it add extra pressure? Sure. And I think that pressure comes more from, you know, this isn't just an intimate one-on-one experience. This is a one-on-one experience where that star player is putting a lot of trust in us because we're putting them up in front of an audience. And the last thing I want is somebody to come on as a star player and to feel like they've been bamboozled or tricked or made to look dumb. That is the last thing I want. Tiffany Gold is the clown on stage, you know, like she is the one who, if anybody's going to look dumb, if anybody's going to have pie on her face, it's Tiffany Gold. And I think the pressure comes more from, I really want to protect that person and that star, no matter what they say. I mean, within reason, totally. We do also have some safety protocols. Usually the person has signed up before the show, so we have wavering and we make sure that we they have a little bit of an idea of what they need to expect. There's an onboarding they get from my co-star Grant Kennedy Lewis plays a character named Alex, who's an onstage stage manager all night. And he is the first person to meet the star player, so that they also have a little bit of a threshold guardian experience before entering the belly of the whale that is Tiffany. So I think that's, if anything, the pressure really comes from wanting to make sure that they end up looking good and having a good experience. As far as like improvising with what they give me though, that's why I do this. I feel like this kind of interactive art does something to like my brain as a performer where it's like firing on all pistons. And that's a really exciting feeling. I love it when somebody says something I've never heard on stage before. During our January run, we had a guy who ended it saying, not only do I not want the refund, I want to pay you guys an extra $300. And immediately, like, and it's also, you know, the way we rehearse this is more similar to like an improv show where it's like, we're kind of prepared for certain things. I had never been prepared for that. But because I was so like locked into that character and that vibe, I'm like, really? Will you Venmo our producer right now? And she pulled up her QR code and he literally did. Literally did. And it was so exciting because also the audience can tell when something that's never happened before is happening and there's this charge. So yeah, I'd say I don't get nervous in terms of getting thrown off because I also think the trick to any immersive script is you got to write something that can bend without breaking. You have to be willing to let go of that beautiful line that you wrote because it's just not going to make sense with what they said. But that's part of the delight in and of itself is that if the show goes well, people by the end are more focused on the star player than they are on the box that allowed that to happen. Because then I want them walking out thinking like, could I do that? I could probably do that. And that's fun.
During my research for you, I found out that this isn't your first Fringe. You have performed there before.
Yeah.
Was that with No Refunds?
Yes. So it was with No Refunds last year.
So I haven't been before. This year will be my first year, so I'm very excited. Hopefully I'll bump into you. But what was it like taking your show the first time to the Fringe then? What was that experience like?
I love to use the metaphor of my producer and I we had a goal to go to the Edinburgh Festival Fringe. That was like, we were like, we know that the show, we had done research on what it was. We knew what it was. We knew there wasn't really anything similar in the US. And so we made this goal and this plan to get the show there. And for a long time, our goal was just to get to the Fringe. And then we got to the Fringe faster than we expected. Like we didn't necessarily expect to go last year. It was our first year actually doing the show in New York as well. And we booked a partial run with Just the Tonic. And it was only 5 days. And I use the metaphor of, it is as if we had said, our dream is to swim in the ocean. And then we were suddenly in the ocean and our dream was happening, but we didn't have life vests. We didn't have a boat. We didn't have any of those other things that people who regularly swim in the open ocean know to have. That being said, I think both my producer Olivia Wynn and I are very much people who learn by doing.
Yeah.
I think if I had spent too much time bogged down with research and trying to find out everything I could, I would have never gone. I would have never gone. I would have psyched myself out. I would have been like, I don't know what I'm doing. And did we know what we were doing last year? Absolutely not. I'm like, we're the best show you didn't see because you didn't hear about it. Like we were up for 5 days in the middle of the Fringe. And I will say we had like decent audiences. Yeah. We had like over 20 people at one point, which was we're like, the average is 3 or so. We were happy. But this year we're going about it so differently. I mean, even the fact that you and I are talking, this was not something that we were doing last year. We were still figuring out where we were going to be at this time last year. I would really encourage, though, I think it was also so worth it. Like we were able to do, also because we were taking a show, we were able to fundraise to go. So we broke even. We didn't end up like, which also like, that was really good. It wasn't just like, oh, we're paying out of our own pockets this whole experience. Our audiences from New York supported our 5-day run. And we had some people come see it in Scotland too, who supported us and tipped us and all that awesome stuff. And so it was really useful, and it cost less than it would have for us to go as audience members. And we got to see so many other amazing things. And now we feel like we know so much more, which is really nice. And this year, last year kind of feels like a preview, and we're like, great, okay, we're like actually going in knowing what we're doing this year, which is exciting. But it's your first time.
Yes, never been before.
Oh my
so I'm
gosh.
very excited. I've got, I've obviously done the classic. I want to see every show possible, and then had to cut down.
Yes, that is unfortunately the reality.
Yeah. Obviously, I normally chat to people who are taking their shows to the Fringe for the first time. Obviously, you returning is slightly different. So regardless of the extra run time, obviously you're doing a bigger run this time. Does it add pressure returning to the Fringe, considering how well it went the first time?
Yes and no. I think there's no way we do worse than last time, to be honest, which is maybe crazy of me to say. But like, I mean, even stuff as simple as like, we did not know it was illegal to, and this is alleged actually. While I'm being recorded. Allegedly, hypothetically, if a company were to put posters up in the city of Edinburgh without a permit, that would be very bad because that's illegal. And hypothetically, if you were an American company who hadn't been told that by anyone, you might do that. And then you might get a scary email from your venue about how much that will cost them. And then you might spend your entire first day abroad actually just running around the city, retracing your steps to rip your posters off of every wall. And hypothetically, if that were to happen to anybody, that would be a really stressful and scary day that sets you back just a little bit.
And also hypothetically, it must have been a weird sight that whoever that was tearing down their own show posters must have been a mind exercise. Whoever did that, whoever
did that, performance art, maybe, who knows? Everything is performance art. Truly, this year we already feel a little more settled. Also, we've gotten to know. I think the other thing that's amazing about the Fringe is just how community oriented it is. We really didn't know many people going in last year. This year, I feel like every time I like go out to see a show in New York, I'm meeting somebody in the queue who's like, I'm also taking a show to Fringe this year. I guess all of New York City is coming to invade. So sorry in advance. It's been, which is also great. And it's also really, I think too, the nice thing is like last year we were so lost, and it's been really nice to meet people who are going for the first time and to be able to go, hey, here's what I wish I'd known, and kind of pass that along and keep that spirit going. Because something I always say too is I think my favorite thing about the ethos of the Fringe is, whereas some theater communities can be kind of competitive and intense because there's a scarcity mindset, there's only so many jobs, blah, 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 blah. The beauty of the Fringe is that when weird theater succeeds, more weird theater will succeed. Us all doing well only helps all of us. Like, Fringe shows going well means theaters here will book more Fringe shows. And so there really is this ethos of like, everybody's like, how can I help you? Like my friend Liz literally like texted me like, hey, I'm staying at this vet, like this is where our accommodations are. It's only a 2-minute walk from Patter House. And we were like, oh, thank you so much for sending this. Like that kind of resource sharing is really common, which is so nice. And I'm already going in this year being like, okay, great. I know people. I like, if I'm having a freak out, I have a few people I can go chat with. And yeah, also we won't lose, hypothetically, there will not be a day lost to any sort of just not knowing laws. Um,
So we are coming to the end of my questions, but I do have a couple more. So for people who haven't heard of your show before, what can they expect and why should they come see it?
well, I don't expect anything. I mean, well, expect to be entertained. You
Yes.
will be entertained. Every night it's different. We are actually playing around with a new mechanic where there truly will be a randomized selection of which
Wow.
games it is each night. So there will be 9 possible games. Only 3 will be played on any given night. So that's exciting. Expect something that is both funny and somewhat. I think there's like one of the reviews that we had said playful and profound. And I think that is something I really loved that quote because, and profound because there's something really beautiful about watching a person completely unmasked on stage. And every night we have a star player who comes on. And the thing is too, like you never know what you're going to get. Everyone ends up looking good. I mean, that's also what's fun is every show we do, I have some first timer come up to me afterwards and go, they're a plant, right? Like convinced that it's a person that I've prepped, you know, who already knew all these things. And so, but if you also go multiple times, you start to actually see how different things can be. There's this twists and turns. You never know.
Yeah.
There will be blonde hair and a glittering dress.
And so if people do want to learn more about the blonde hair and glitter and dress, where can they find you on social media and stay up to date with you?
At No Refunds, play on Instagram, at Tiffany Gold fan account on TikTok. My personal Instagram is at Katy Murphy fan account. And yeah, those are all. And then also, if you hate social media, which it is a scourge upon our times, I have a website. It's katy-murphy.com. If you go to Katy-Murphy, and that's Katy with a Y, Katy, katy-murphy.com/no-refunds. You can see all about the show, and you can also sign up for our newsletter at the bottom of the page so that you can be kept up to date via email instead of Instagrams. And we don't send too many. It's like we'll send an email if we have tickets to
Yeah.
send you, and that's pretty much it.
Fabulous. I'll put all the links in the comments below so people can scroll down and click away. My final question is, what advice do you have for young performers looking to do what you do?
First, I want to give him a hug.
Mm,
I think something that well, 2 things. A, do like if somebody tells you that you can only do one thing, like if you should package yourself as an actor, you should package yourself as a writer, or you should package yourself as a director, if whatever, you should only be this thing, and it's important to focus on that. But you feel really limited by that, don't just be that one thing. Let yourself expand. Yeah, you might not get your success will not come as quickly. And I hate this advice because this is advice I received, and at the time I didn't want to hear it. And now I'm like, oh, I do get it. Trust your timing. Sometimes the things you're developing process, and you might not actually have something to say yet. And oftentimes things have to happen before in your life, and not always the greatest things. But you have to live a life. You have to live a life outside of the theater. You have to live a life experiencing the world and people, and that will give you something to say. And you have to let that marinate, and trust that your story, trust the timing, and trust the people around. Pick people that you can trust genuinely as well. theater doesn't, be a novelist if you want to work by yourself, is what I say too. If you want to do theater, it is always going to require a whole team of other people. And know that and be a good collaborator. Be somebody who can work well with others in a room.
I started by saying it, but I'll end the same way. Thank you so much for taking the time out to sit down and chat with me. As I said, I'll put the links in the comments below so people can scroll down and click away. But I also wish you the best of luck for the Edinburgh Fringe, and hopefully I'll bump into you up there.
Thank you, Rhys. Hopefully, comes maybe get a star player ticket. I'm sure. I don't know. You got what it takes, I think.
See you soon.